Good evening, and welcome to the Agoura Hills City Council meeting of March 11th, 2026. At this time, please silence all cell phones and other electronic devices. If you wish to speak or submit a written comment, please complete a comment card for each agenda item and submit to the city clerk prior to the public comment portion of the item. I will now call this meeting to order. As usual, we're going to start with our land acknowledgement and acknowledge that we occupy land that is still inhabited and originally cared for by the Chumash Nation. Descendants of the Chumash still remain, and we honor and pay our respects to their elders and various groups that make up the past, present, and emerging as they continue their stewardship of our lands and waters. We have a responsibility and a commitment to elevate the stories, culture, and community of these original inhabitants of Agoura Hills, and we're grateful to have the opportunity to live and work on these lands. For the Pledge of Allegiance, I will defer to Ramiro. Could you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance tonight? Thank you, Ramiro. We'll now defer to the city clerk for roll call.
Thank you. Good evening. Councilmember Anderson? Here. Councilmember Anstead? Councilmember Sylvester?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Klein Lopez?
Here.
Mayor Wolf?
Present.
Mayor Wolf, you have a quorum with Councilmember Anstead absent.
Thank you so much. There was no closed session, so there is no report of closed session. Now moving on to the approval of the agenda. Will the makers of the motion and second to approve the agenda state your names?
Councilmember Sylvester so moves.
I'll second. Deborah Klein Lopez.
I'll now defer to city clerk for roll call.
Councilmember Anderson?
Aye.
Councilmember Sylvester?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Klein Lopez?
Aye.
Mayor Wolf?
Aye.
Mayor Wolf, you have approval 4-0.
Thank you. There are no presentations this evening, but we will now move on to intergovernmental, special purpose committee, and departmental reports. To start us off, I'm going to defer to Mayor Pro Tem Klein Lopez for a Clean Power Alliance update.
Thank you. There's a lot going on with Clean Power Alliance. First, I want to mention to everyone that our 2025 annual impact report is out with some amazing statistics. And I hope I don't bore you, but they're amazing. They're really, truly amazing. So I want to share some of the top ticket items. We continue to have over 3 million residents and businesses served by our 38 cities, 38 jurisdictions, soon to be 40. 67%, 2/3 of our customers are served by 100% renewable energy. And I think, as I mentioned last time, we continue to be the #1 provider of 100% green power renewable energy in the nation. And in 2025, we saved 3.6 billion pounds of GHG emissions. I want to also highlight, by 2025. So I also want to highlight a couple of other interesting statistics of this amazing organization that is a joint powers authority with, like I mentioned, 38 jurisdictions. In 2025 alone, we created 600 jobs, which is amazing. We enrolled 33,000 new customers, which will help avoid over 128 million pounds of GHG emissions. We provided $375,000 in community grants. We saved, this is really important in this age of affordability, particularly when it comes to utilities. We are saving our customers $35 million from prepay bonds, so it's a very complex financial hedging that we do to enable to pre-purchase energy and save our customers billions of dollars over the course of time, but $35 million in 2025. And we also contributed almost $350,000 in workforce training and apprenticeship programs. So really making sure that the next generation, current generation of our workforce is ready for the green jobs that are coming down the pike. So it's really exciting stuff. I love our impact report. Let me know if you're interested in hearing more stats. And then finally, I just want to mention one thing from our last meeting. We are going to be piloting a program to try to change consumer behavior to those who do work from home or are at home during the day. Obviously, especially here in our region, in California, solar is plentiful during daytime hours. We get a lot of it most days of the year. And so we are going to be piloting a rate that allows, for example, if you do work from home and you can charge your car or use your appliances or use a lot of energy during the daytime, we're going to be piloting a smart rate that is going to be, or hopefully going to be, zero cost energy from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. We're playing with the different rates to really encourage that behavior that if you are home and you can charge your car during the day and you can do those things between those hours when energy is plentiful and cheaper, we may be able to offer you a zero cost energy rate. It's not totally zero because we have the delivery side of things and Edison and some state law fees that are on, but the actual procurement of the energy we might be able to get down to $0 during that time. I would change my behavior if I were home. So hopefully we'll see. We're working with UCLA and some of their amazing staff members, professors on really behavior science to see if this will work. And of course there will be bill protection so that for those who are enrolled in the pilot program, and I see a council member coming in, for those who are enrolled in a pilot program, they will have bill protection so that if it just doesn't work for them and they're not able to do that, we are going to be protecting their bills for the time of the pilot. So really looking forward to that, and I'll keep you all posted. And that is the report from Clean Power Alliance. Thank you.
Please, Councilmember Sylvester.
Could I, because that sounds fascinating. So just a follow-up on the pilot program, will that be just in one area or across the state or?
No, it'll be across our service territory, so
Right.
LA and Ventura counties. Again, the 38 jurisdictions that we have, and it will be a very random sample because we want to catch people of different income
Right.
ranges and different geographic ranges, coastal versus inland. So there will be a random sample. People, I believe, are going to be automatically enrolled with notice, obviously, because the whole idea is to try to get behavior changes. And they can opt out. But it's if we were to ask people to enroll, we'd get a skewed
Yes.
sample. So it is going to be a random sample across our jurisdictions.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for that report and all you do for the Clean Power Alliance. It's a lot of work and it's a big benefit.
Thank you.
Are there any reports from staff?
I'd just like to make a quick announcement that Councilmember Chris Anstead has joined the meeting.
Thank you. Are there any reports from the City Council? Seeing or hearing none, we're going to now move on to the public comment section. This section is reserved for individuals wishing to speak on items that are not listed on the agenda that are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the City Council. If you have materials to distribute to the Council, please do not approach the dais. Instead, provide them to the City Clerk for distribution on your behalf. Public testimony is limited to 3 minutes per speaker, and a speaker's time may not be transferred to another speaker. Individuals addressing the Council shall refrain from disorderly conduct that disrupts or otherwise impedes the orderly conduct of the meeting. I will now defer to the City Clerk.
Thank you. No written correspondence was received, and we do not have any speaker cards.
Thank you so much. Moving on to the consent calendar. This section is reserved for persons wishing to speak on items on the consent calendar. I will again defer to the City Clerk.
Thank you. No written correspondence was received, and we do not have any speaker cards.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the City Council on the consent calendar? I will now call for a motion and a second to adopt the consent calendar. Will the makers of the motion and the second state your name?
This is City Councilman Chris Anstad. I make a motion to approve the consent calendar.
Councilmember Sylvester seconds.
Thank you. I will now defer to the city clerk for roll call.
Councilmember Anderson.
Aye.
Councilmember Anstead.
Aye.
Councilmember Sylvester.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Klein Lopez.
Aye.
Mayor Wolf.
Aye.
Mayor Wolf, you have approval, 5-0.
Thank you so much. Moving on to the ordinance and action portion of tonight's meeting. Our next item is a discussion to waive full reading and introduce ordinance number 26-485, amending Article 3 of the Public Safety of the Agoura Hills Municipal Code by adding new Chapter 10, regulating electric mobility devices. I will now defer to the Public Works and City Engineer, Charmaine Yambao, for the staff presentation.
Good evening, Mayor Wolf and City Council members. This is Amy Brink, Director of
And Amy Brink, Director of Community Services. Thank you, Amy.
for tag teaming, and I actually get the pleasure of starting first. So, good evening. Thank you. I'm glad we're here tonight. I would also like to say that yes, Director of Public Works Charmaine Yambao is with us to present, along with Sergeant Aarons, our traffic sergeant from Lost Hills Sheriff Station, and Matt Stewart, our city engineer with Kimley Horn. So as a team, we will be presenting the electric bicycles or e-bikes proposed ordinance number 26485 this evening. It's been a lot of meetings, a lot of discussions on a very complex issue. So hopefully we'll walk you through and have some lively discussions about it. Thank you. We have an agenda laid out for you. There's a lot of information in here. Obviously, we'll start with our purpose and our background, why electric bicycles, what are some of the local concerns. We're going to talk a little bit about the California Vehicle Code or CVC, governance of it, types of electric mobility devices, a timeline of our progress, education and engagement, which is always an important component when we're discussing e-bikes, presentation of the proposed ordinance, number 26-485. We'll propose staff recommendations or the team's recommendations, and at the end we'll pause for questions. So why don't we start off with the purpose and remind ourselves that the City Council set a goal back in fiscal year 25-26 to amend electrical e-bikes, we'll say e-bikes, rules and regulations. It also comes with the proposed amending of the Agoura Hills Municipal Code to establish regulation of these e-bikes or electric mobility devices. A little bit of background. Why are we talking about electric bikes, e-bikes? Electric bicycles, scooters, motorized bicycles, and other vehicles have become more accessible. We've talked about that a lot in our meetings. Many cities have experienced an increase in their use, particularly by minors, within public spaces and on public roadways. Electric mobility devices can provide convenient transportation. The size, speed, and the characteristics of these vehicles or these bikes have led to conflicts with pedestrians, cyclists, motorists in the parks, on trails, sidewalks, streets, and people just generally using parks and public facilities. That's why we're talking specifically about e-bikes tonight. So let's take just a quick review or look back on some of the local concerns regarding the use of e-bikes in the city of Agoura Hills. The use of e-bikes, motorized bicycles, and motorized scooters in parks and on sidewalks and on the streets. Residents feel like they're getting inundated with these e-bikes in parks, on the sidewalks, and on the streets. And some bad behavior, bad use or improper use of these e-bikes. Safety concerns of higher speeds of e-bikes over analog or non-motorized bikes when used in areas intended primarily for pedestrians or recreational use. There's also an increased use of these devices by minors in parks as well as on public streets in mixed traffic. Unsafe riding of these devices or lack of compliance with traffic control devices also, which increases the risk of collisions to both riders and motorists. And at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Public Works Director Yambao to start talking about the technical aspect and the CVC code.
The California Vehicle Code governs electric mobility devices, such as e-bikes, on public roadways. The CVC classifications of these devices are complex based on design and speed, in other words, how fast they can go. Their operation rules, the CVC's operation rules, are also equally as complex, specific to the type of device, and are subject to change, which contributes to confusions among users. And the CVC lacks provisions for education, particular for younger users, on proper behaviors and protocols for the operation of e-bikes. The CVC does not comprehensively regulate the use of electric mobility devices in areas outside of public roadways, such as sidewalks, parks, recreational trails and facilities, and bicycle paths. Regulation is left to the discretion of cities and counties to determine and adopt local regulations for these devices. This slide you've seen before in past presentations is just a visual. I won't go into the details of it, of how complex the classification and regulations of electric mobility devices are. So the timeline of our progress. The regulation of electric mobility devices, particularly e-bikes, will have a community-wide effect. Staff diligently worked with the community stakeholders, involving them with each step of the way. Over the past year, staff worked in collaboration with the city traffic engineer, Lost Hills Sheriff Station, and the Las Virgenes Unified School District on developing a comprehensive discussion on an approach to e-bike regulations, enforcement, and education. On October 6, 2025, a discussion item was brought to the Community Services Subcommittee on e-bike rules and regulations. Feedback was provided on signage and regulation in parks and sidewalks. On October 22, 2025, a discussion item was brought to City Council on e-bike rules and regulations. The City Council provided direction to modify the Agoura Hills Municipal Code, prohibiting the use of e-bikes on both parks and on sidewalks, with enforcement to complete the process of compliance and overall public safety. And on December 11, 2025, enforcement options were presented to the Community Services Subcommittee. The options provided included administrative citations, infractions, misdemeanors, and a combination of infraction to a misdemeanor. Subcommittee provided feedback to staff on having enforcement be set on the stronger side, starting with violations punishable as an infraction, with multiple violations punishable as a misdemeanor. I'd like to take a pause here and hand it back over to Amy to present a critical component of e-bike regulation, and that is education and engagement.
Thank you, Charmaine. Enforcement is important to regulation of e-bikes. Education and engagement are critical in ensuring that the community understands how to navigate the rules and the regulations. Back on February 2nd, Community Services Subcommittee was presented with a nonprofit organization called It Needs to End. It's an education program that goes into the schools, particularly in the Conejo Unified School District, and presents a workshop education program that focuses on e-bike safety, understanding what e-bike, different levels of e-bikes are out there, and how to safely use them and how to safely manage them. So workshops, instruction, detailed education on e-bike use. We plan to focus on working with an organization like this to offer a program in the beginning of the e-bike implementation, if the council chooses to adopt the ordinance, up at the recreation center, and then continue to work with the school district to see that we get this type of a program into the schools. City of Westlake Village has also expressed interest in partnering with the City of Agoura Hills on this program, supporting this program. I've also had several calls from other nonprofit organizations eager to work with the city on offering a variety of educational components. So it's really exciting that there are so many people out there that would like to assist with this and help to get that safety component out there. City staff, as always, city staff will continue to engage in public education and outreach. We attend regularly PFC, PFA meetings. We plan to initiate a bicycle safety campaign targeted for all road users, including drivers. Communications manager Haddad has already started working with the communications team under Assistant City Manager Romero Deva to develop a robust outreach, marketing, communication plan that will begin immediately. The information will be focused on unsafe driving, unsafe riding, and new traffic laws that appeared this year. There'll also be a large social media campaign. I have no doubt that our communications team will do an excellent outreach program when this begins. So with that, we're going to now jump into the details and the technical aspects of the proposed ordinance, and I will turn it back over to Public Works Director Yambao.
Okay, these next two slide details ordinance 26485, presented here today for City Council's consideration to approve. Ordinance 26485 proposes to amend Article 3, Public Safety of the City's Municipal Code. It adds a new Chapter 10, governing electric mobility devices. The new chapter provides reference to the CVC in its most current version. It also provides definitions used for this chapter, such as bicycle, electric mobility devices, both of which are defined also in the CVC, operator of these devices, parks, and the public area. The definition of unsafe manner of operating these devices are also included, and that definition states that these devices in any manner whatsoever that displays a willful or wanton disregard for the safety of other person or property. The new chapter also regulates the operation of these devices, banning the operations of these devices from public sidewalks, public drainage facilities, culverts, ditch or channels, anywhere outside of any roadway or other paved public area, any park, public athletics field, athletic sports court, or gymnasium in the city, equestrian trails, hiking or recreational trails, any public area where bicycles or motor vehicles are prohibited. The new chapter also states that no person shall ride these devices in unsafe manner in any public area. And operators, if they are stopped lawfully by a police officer, will allow them to inspect their devices to determine if the rider is legally allowed to operate the device. And I would like to note there is recent legislation that requires that e-bikes are properly labeled. Those are AB 1096 and AB 875. The new chapter also includes enforcements, and the details of the enforcement of the new regulations are under the city's municipal code, Article 1, General Provisions, Chapter 2, Penalties. First and second violations of the new chapter within 1 year shall be an infraction, punishable as set forth in Section 1200B, which includes a fine of not exceeding $100 for the first violation and not exceeding $200 for the second violation. A third violation escalates to a misdemeanor, punishable as set forth in Section 1200A, which includes a fine of not more than $1,000 or by imprisonment in the county jail for a period not exceeding 6 months. The new chapter also says that if an operator is a juvenile, officers will make a reasonable effort to contact the parent or responsible guardians, and the parent and legal guardian of the minor shall be jointly and liable with the minor for the payment of any such fines. This ordinance 26485 is exempt from CEQA, stating Section 15061B3, there are no significant impact or effects on the environment, and is enforceable 30 days after the final adoption of the ordinance 26485. And I'd like to hand this back to Amy to close out the presentation. Here you go, Ms. Brink.
And I would like to mention, we didn't touch on it earlier, the communication, outreach, marketing plan, the subcommittee felt really strongly about having signage in the parks so that we would have specific signs to the banning of e-bikes and e-bikes not being permitted in the parks. There was a little bit of discussion about signage not being put up on street lights or street poles saying no bikes on the sidewalk. So that was a recommendation by the subcommittee. I just wanted to mention that. But at this point, we respectfully recommend that the City Council waive full reading and introduce ordinance number 26-485, amending the Agoura Hills Municipal Code to establish electric mobility device regulations and making a finding of exemption pursuant to CEQA, California Environmental Quality Act. And that concludes our presentation this evening, and we are happy to answer any questions that the council may have. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that thorough presentation. Before we move on to the public comments, do any council members have questions of staff? Starting on my left, I see Mayor Pro Tem Klein Lopez.
I do have a few just clarifying questions. With all the different, and I think I know the answer to this, but just want to make sure publicly we're getting this clear. With all the classifications of bikes and motorized vehicles, we're talking about the e-bikes where you do or do not have to have a minimum age and or a license. You do not, right?
All e-bikes, actually.
E-bikes.
Yes.
So no minimum age to ride
No
an
minimum
e-bike.
age.
And no need for a license to operate an e-bike.
That is correct.
Okay. And then my next question is, for AB 1096 and 876, what does it mean exactly for something to be properly labeled? What does that look like?
I'm going to hand that over to Matt, but actually, if you bear with me, let me go back to that. I do have notes to myself on that one.
Almost like you knew I was going to ask.
I had it there, and for that same reason, Mayor Pro Tem. So AB 1096 requires e-bikes to identify the type and wattage. So there's types 1, 2, 3. And AB 875, which was just recently passed last year, allows law enforcement to remove a Class 3 e-bike if operated by someone under 16. Because that's the rule for the Class 3.
Say that again.
So AB 875, recently passed last year, allows law enforcement to remove a Class 3 e-bike if operated by someone under 16, so they can confiscate it.
Okay.
Just to clarify on that, you had asked whether or not licenses were required or age limits were required. For a Class 3 e-bike, there is a 16-year-old. You have to be 16 years old or older for a Class 3 e-bike.
Just for Class 3?
Yes.
But no license, just
No license.
an age minimum?
Correct.
Okay, yeah, it's complicated, I know. Okay, and then, again, I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this, but I just want to make sure we're all on the same page here. Most of the complaints that I've received about, the behavioral aspects of e-bikes have actually been occurring in the streets. And so our ordinance is not covering anything on the streets because that is not within our jurisdiction. Is that correct?
That is correct. It is the California Vehicle Code that governs the operation of these types of devices in the roadway.
Okay. And then I guess the question is really for both the streets and what is in our jurisdiction, parks, sidewalks, this and that. What does enforcement look like? What has been your experience? Because these things happen, and this again may be for Lost Hills Sheriff, but what does it look like when someone's driving down the street and, someone's riding an e-bike unsafely and it's just happening real quickly and there's no way to identify, like what does it look like from your point of view on how enforcement works?
So the deputy would try to do their best to obviously initiate a stop. Our pursuit policy is we will not pursue, so there's that. But we're working on plans on potentially other potentially if that gets approved, and be able to potentially follow them back to their residence and contact them. So that's in the works, but that's as of right now, it's not approved for us to use. But in the meantime, we're trying to do what we can, make traffic stops, but then when they take off, we're not pursuing.
You're not pursuing. And sorry, just to go back to the drone comment. When you say we are pursuing that option, the county.
Yes.
It's a
Sheriff's
county.
Department, the county is pursuing that as an option.
Okay.
Right now, our policies on drone usage are restrictive, but that is something we're trying to see if we can use as a better tool. So hopefully that will be in the works soon, very soon, and that'll be a better option for us versus pursuing.
Okay, thank you. And then on the city side, our enforcement of anything that what we do have control over right now, what is that looking like? Because I know it's our code enforcement is a very busy person and takes time to get her places. So what does it look like on our point, from our point?
Mayor Pro Tem, it's actually with the infraction to misdemeanor, it keeps it in the sheriff's department.
Okay, so it's all
There's no
sheriff, it's
administrative.
nothing with the city.
That is correct.
Okay, that was a clarification I needed. And then my last question for now, and then I'm sure I'll have more, is I know that since there are so many youths that have this newfound power, newfound wattage, they, in my anecdotal opinion, it seems to be that's who's, really violating some of these unsafe rules. And so much of it is about education, and so much of it does stem from in cooperation with our school district. Has there been any talk about coordinating these ordinances with other cities that share the Las Virgenes Unified School District, or with the COG, or anything like that, so we don't have different ordinances in different cities?
I have talked to, City of Calabasas and City of Westlake just from their traffic engineer standpoint, and I know there's not necessarily coordination, but there's been discussion. There's been sharing of like what we've been experiencing, what we're moving towards. I know that Calabasas is, if they haven't already, they're in the process of doing the same of what we're doing. I do also know that enforcement it differs for each city, at least in our region.
How would it differ if it's all?
I think Westlake is administrative. I apologize, I don't know what Calabasas is doing, so the enforcement's a little different in how they might handle it.
So just to clarify, you're saying that theirs is not a misdemeanor and wouldn't go through the sheriff? This is why I'm asking about enforcement.
I have to apologize, I don't know exactly what Westlake's is for that.
I actually looked up Westlake's today. They have an infraction structure and then a misdemeanor in the final one.
So how does ours differ again from Westlake?
The difference is the structure of theirs. Theirs is the first 3 violations are infractions, and then the 4th one is a misdemeanor, and that's all within a year time period.
And ours is?
Ours is structured at this point and presented as the first 2 are infractions. The 3rd one in the same year would be a misdemeanor. And I can't speak for Calabasas because I don't believe they've adopted theirs yet.
Councilmember Sylvester.
I would just like to throw in a couple of pieces. At the COG meeting, we have discussed this. We've had Jeff Kiernan from the League of California Cities on with us.
Okay.
There is currently legislation that is proposed this year. I was going to talk about that. Should I talk about that now? Part of the discussion. Also, the first thing I want to say is that wheelies on e-bikes are illegal in California when performed on public roads, as they constitute unsafe, reckless riding or an exhibition at speed. E-bikes must follow the same rules of the road as traditional bicycles, meaning stunt riding is subject to traffic citations and, in some cities, ordinances. So it's already on the books with the state that you can't do wheelies. And I think this is part of our education outreach. We have to let parents know that it's dangerous and it's unlawful.
Right, but my question is about enforcement.
Right, well, that's
But again, so for the first and second infraction, or say the 3rd infraction in Westlake Village, those all go to the sheriff?
They should, because it's a violation of California.
They're structured, yes, the same way as ours, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then, so the e-bike laws, if you could confirm this for me, as of January of this year, there is a new e-bike law, AB 544, that says that rear visibility e-bikes must have a red reflector or a solid flashing red light with built-in reflector usable at all times, not just at night. So we have bikes currently in the city, because I see them every night, and in the daytime too, that do not have lights, don't have reflector lights. So those are already illegal, and parents are liable. Parents and guardians can be fined or cited if their minor child violates e-bike laws, including riding without required safety gear, or operating an unsafe bike. There are apps, smartphone apps, that parents can use to see how their children are using their e-bikes. So again, this is educational outreach. So when we're doing our education, we must push that. There are new...
So, I'm sorry, before we go into that, I want to just stay back to the question. I think we can talk about what's legal and what's unsafe, and I think we're pretty much in agreement on that.
All the COG cities want the sheriff's department.
But my question is about the ordinances and the enforcement similarities and differences across our 4 cities.
Right, but what I'm saying is these are already laws that should be
No, I know what the law is.
Should
I'm
we
asking
wait
about enforcement.
for
But it has to be
deliberation
done by
for
the
this?
sheriff's department, not by the individual
No, I
city.
understand, but it's our ordinance that sends it over to the sheriff's department. So I'm
No,
trying.
it doesn't, because it's already a state law. So it's already enforceable.
Well, we're talking about an ordinance that we are putting in place.
We're banning them from the parks, but on the streets where they're doing the wheelies,
And I'm talking about our ordinance.
so just the parks.
I'm talking about our ordinance being consistent or different from the other cities. I know well, I don't know, but I think we can be clear that what's happening on the streets is consistent across California.
Yeah.
But what I'm asking is, what is the enforcement and what are the differences between our ordinances between the cities that the school district shares? Because a lot of our education is going to be happening through the school district. So I want to understand how they are the same, how they're different, and ways we might want to
line up.
To line up, exactly.
And let's keep it to questions too, with getting away
Yeah.
from.
Mayor Pro Tem, to your point, City of Westlake Village adopted their ordinance prior to us, so we know what's on City of Westlake Villages. Public Works Director Yambao had a conversation with the Director of Public Works at the City of Calabasas. They are currently in the process of doing what we're doing. They're in their initial stages. Actually had a conversation about enforcement, what we would be proposing. Hopefully they will jump on board and align with us. It's a little bit of a train. Westlake went first, Westlake Village went first, City of Agoura Hills is next, and then Calabasas will follow closely and hopefully align, because I think we do believe that it's critical. Like a component of good enforcement would be great if the cities were all lined up. It would be easy, it would not be confusing for people. I will say that we just started an initial discussion with the school district back in January, let them know that we would be trying to work with them to implement this education. I think we're not quite sure what that looks like yet. The program I mentioned earlier actually went into classrooms, but it was a 2, 4, 6-hour workshop. So I think the school district had to kind of swallow that concept and understand how that could be implemented in LVUSD. The board members were very supportive of doing something.
Yeah.
Even if it's us operating this workshop on campus after school, they were very supportive of it. I will take a moment to mention that the It Never Ends program, if the council desires, we can maybe talk about that a little bit later. If we wanted to start something initially before, we're coming to the end of the school year, but if we're eager to start an education program, as mentioned in the staff report, we can allocate up to $5,000 to workshops that we could actually offer up at the recreation center, and with the support and maybe financial contributions from City of Westlake Village, we'd be able to reach more students. So that's kind of the overall kind of big picture of what education will look like. And then, like I said, school district is very cooperative with us right now. We're just not quite sure how it's going to be implemented. I think that's what has to be
Yeah, I
figured
understand.
out.
They have a lot of pressures.
Absolutely.
Curriculum-wise.
And then wait, when Calabasas hopefully comes on board, then we'll be able to do it, you're right, through the district in some capacity.
Can I also add, I know that Lost Hills has shared that they're doing a brochure specific to our region, and I can have Sergeant Aaron's, and it is specific to e-bikes and the rules and regulations that are coming out locally here.
So I just recently started putting this together. It's basically a brochure that we can have at all the cities, all the schools, as well as any department functions that we have, like open house, etc., that parents can grab, and they can understand, like, what is an e-motorcycle, what is an e-bike, and what classifications are, and you know, what speeds they're allowed to go, etc. So that way, hopefully, the parents are more informed when they're making these purchases for their kids. So I do have, it's an example. It's not the approved one, but it's basically, it shows the applicable laws that would apply to these e-motorcycles for enforcement as well as e-bikes, lighting, helmets, all the above, and as well as parental citations are also on there. It also says that, we can potentially cite a parent for allowing them to operate a vehicle that's not properly equipped. Or in the extreme, it could be a child endangerment. There's various things that we can do. So we put this flyer together. We're going to start to get this put out very soon, and then it'll be here at the cities as well as at the schools.
Thank you. That's good for me for now. I may
now,
have more,
okay.
but that's a lot for
Thank
now.
you.
I will turn it over to someone
Let's
else.
continue with the questions. Keep it. I saw Councilmember Anderson.
Yes. Mayor Pro Tem Klein Lopez, thank you. Those were great questions. They generated questions for me, actually. Okay, so and terrific presentation, and thank you for all of the hard work on this. Okay, so the first question is around Section B of the 31002, operation of electric mobility devices. And B, so A is all about where you're not allowed to ride the bike. And then B says, no person shall ride an electric mobility device in an unsafe manner in any public area. And what brought this question to mind was some part of the comment that was like, this ordinance is just all about the parks and not being able. So I'm curious then, if that's true, if it's all about the parks, you're not allowed to ride the bike in the park anyway, what work is Section B doing? And I'll tell you, when I was reading this, it was like, oh, this is great. It's just, it is added to, like if they're out in the street, it is further, like you really cannot be riding your bike in an unsafe manner.
Actually, the Chapter 10 is not just for parks, it's for sidewalks and other public areas. But that section in particular is taking into account the definition of unsafe manner, and that's anywhere.
But that's, I guess that's my question, is if, right, well, it's potentially useless. So if our, if our ordinance is all, the ordinance, and I love this, I mean, giving my cards away, if A1 through 6 are all the places that you can't write it, I can't write it in a safe manner, I can't write it in an unsafe manner. Like, I can't, so those are all the places I can't write it at all. So what purpose does Section B have? Where is it that I can't write it in an unsafe manner that's not part of 1 through 6?
I guess that's technically kind of true, but
So just to highlight, the term public area is actually defined in the ordinance. It means any outdoor area that is open to the members of the public for public use and is owned or operated by the city or a public agency. So the vehicle code, we can only regulate the areas that the vehicle code expressly says the city can regulate. And it says in there, in the vehicle code, that the city can regulate on public property owned by the city.
Okay.
So I think that's just an addition, it's trying to be very specific for the public, and then as a catch-all, any public land owned by the city, you can't be riding in an unsafe manner. So maybe it's a little bit belts and suspenders, but I know for a fact Westlake Village has the exact same language.
Okay.
In terms of the substantive provisions of what you can and cannot do, I think it's almost identical to Westlake Village. Where we differ is what Mayor Pro Tem Klein Lopez was highlighting, is just the enforcement is slightly different.
Okay, that's fine. I said useless, but that's not true. It's not useless. It is messaging to folks. It's being super, super clear. I'm all about belts and suspenders here. Okay, so another question, actually. I heard it said, and I can't remember if it was Ms. Brink, Ms. Yarbo, or Sergeant Aronson, that all enforcement is the sheriff. So even in the park, the enforcement is the sheriff?
that is correct.
Oh, okay, so this is all sheriff. There is no city staff that is doing any enforcement of this ordinance.
Yeah, the sheriff's department would be taking that on. One thing I wanted to ask is this going to be a notice to appear, or is this going to be an administrative citation? Cities have administrative citations which are better, and they would go to the city for handling, and then the notice to appears would actually go to the court.
And the notice, okay, so the difference is an administrative citation or a notice to appear. Is that your question?
Correct.
And our ordinance is silent on that. Sounds like that may be something,
Yeah, this is not, it's not administrative at all. It
Oh,
would be
okay.
notice to appear.
okay, so it's not silent. You got your question answered. Okay, so now, Sergeant Aronson, I'm so glad you're here. I have a question for you, and this is going to foreshadow an amendment that I am going to offer, but I will ask it as a question.
Okay.
I am curious if you are familiar with diversion programs.
I am. Usually our juvenile team deals with diversionary programs, but in order for diversion to work, technically we have to arrest them.
Okay.
So in order for us to go after them and do the diversion process and basically hold the arrest, if you will, over their heads, so that way they complete the diversion, they have to be arrested.
Interesting. So that's a pretty heavy stick, is to have to get arrested. I'm also curious, is there any reason that you couldn't do a diversion program with a violation of a municipal code?
I would have to look into that.
Okay. So it's possible, you're just not sure if you're able to.
As of right now, I'm pretty sure that we have to be arrested and then we can refer you to diversion.
And you could do that if it's a violation of a municipal code?
Yes, the municipal code technically is, something that we would still send to the court.
Yeah,
So yes. So.
okay. So I won't go any further. I asked my question. To go further is to get into discussion, and I'm going to stop myself from that. Okay, terrific. I love that. Question for our friends who know about Westlake Village. I'm curious if jail is an option in the Westlake Village Code, the way it is with ours.
So the way municipal code enforcement is, the default setup is that all violations of the municipal code are a misdemeanor unless the municipal code provision expressly states that it's an infraction. So I would say the majority of enforcement under the municipal code can be enforced as a misdemeanor. Again, unless it's stated that's an infraction. So in our case, we actually expressly call out the fact that the first two violations are an infraction, and then they escalate to a misdemeanor. Again, the default is a misdemeanor. So we're actually going a little bit more softer.
Okay, so in Westlake, they've got we're proposing 2 steps before a misdemeanor. In Westlake, they've got 3 steps before a misdemeanor. And what you're saying is that in Westlake, once they hit a misdemeanor, then the option is jail as a possibility.
I'm not familiar with their staff report, I'm just familiar with the ordinance. I'm told that their staff report is talking about kind of escalation kind of methods, but the municipal code, the ordinance itself is silent on infractions. So if it's silent on infractions, that means the default is misdemeanors. How they actually go about it and how they decide to enforce it is a separate thing. But the default is that it's a misdemeanor. And then when you're under the umbrella of misdemeanor, you can either go $1,000 fine or in county jail. I have not seen in all my years in Agoura Hills, and in fact, I'm pretty confident in the history of Agoura Hills, we have never put anyone in county jail for a violation of the municipal code.
But that's a judge's, who decides that?
Usually-
It's what we would go after.
Usually it's the city prosecutor.
Okay.
Okay, so what I'm hearing you say is that in Westlake Village, they have, as part of their e-bike ordinance, that, because I'm curious, you are going in a direction of consistency, so I just am curious if us putting in our city code that kids could go to jail for an e-bike infraction would be consistent with what Westlake Village did.
Ours would actually, at least in terms of what is written in the law, or what will be written in the law as proposed, ours would be a little less than Westlake Village, because their default is a misdemeanor. Ours is less, softer, like you said.
They have 4
Mayor Pro Tem.
levels, but they don't call it out as an infraction.
Yes.
Ours has 3 levels, but the first 2 are infractions.
Yeah.
And also so most municipal codes say you have a whole slew of enforcement options, administrative citations, and technically, so ours defaults to our enforcement provisions of our code.
Right.
Administrative citations is technically out there on the table, but we can elect to not go the administrative citation route. We can just go the infraction route. There's a whole host of reasons why administrative citations are sometimes administratively difficult in terms of hearing officers and such, but we decided we don't want to go so aggressive. Let's ramp it up slowly, so the first 2 are infractions, and then misdemeanor. And usually, if cities are going to go with misdemeanor, they're really going at after the $1,000
So
penalty.
interesting. So in Westlake, the very first infraction, they get $1,000 or jail? What?
No, they probably
so
do
my
administrative
question-
citations.
So, yeah, this is my question, is what is Agoura, sorry, what is Westlake doing?
I can try to answer, but again, I don't work for Westlake, so I'm just going to answer what I've read in their report.
Okay.
And my understanding of it is it reads that their first violation is $100, which is an infraction. And
So it is an infraction.
it's administrative, but it listed as the $100, $200, $500, which follows their infraction. And then it says in the report, and again, I'm just reading from them, I haven't spent any time, and their code is not as clear as I think ours is, but I'm okay saying that. I'm okay. We learned from that, and I think we clarified it, so it's not a jab at them. Theirs isn't very clear. It just says in the 4th violation within a year can include a misdemeanor along with the $500 fee in theirs. So they established that as a $500.
So just a $500 fee, there's no...
No, with a misdemeanor, so it could be either or.
Is jail written in theirs?
They don't list it in the report, but in their code that it lists, it's very similar to ours, the description of a misdemeanor, what a misdemeanor is.
So it refers back to their codes? Okay.
Correct. So it's very, very similar to ours, where it refers back to infraction and misdemeanor.
Okay. All right. Those were all my questions. Thank you.
Any questions on this side? Nope. I have a few questions. Can we talk a little bit about what is I understand the fee schedule is set out from the California Vehicle Code. Is that what we're going off of? And what is the schedule like for the fees?
So it's not in the California Vehicle Code. It's actually, I believe it's in the California Government Code.
Oh, Government Code, okay.
So that sets forth for the umbrella of infractions. It says it can only be 100, 200, 500. So we're actually not allowed by state law to increase it. Trust me, cities across the state have wanted to increase it for, particular violations, but there's very specific provision that says, hey, if you're going to have penalties for infractions, these are the amounts that the cities can adopt.
So those are set in
Those
California?
are set per California. There are some little minor exceptions for like building code provisions. Again, that's all set forth in state law. I think short-term rentals, there's also like different dollar amounts, but any type of penalty that's an infraction is going to be dictated by state law.
So that is where these numbers came
Correct.
from, was state law?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. My second question is regarding law enforcement, and Lost Hill Sheriff is on board with this, and they were included in all the committee meetings. Yeah.
Yeah, I was included in all the sit-down meetings, as well as I brought in our dedicated motor, Deputy Forbes, to bring some insight as well as to what he's seeing and any advice from his yes, Lost Hills is on board. We're here to try to make the city as safe as possible.
Okay, thank you. That's very helpful. And then the signage question was answered. And then the education, Amy, you mentioned that it would start, there would be a $5,000 funding from the city, but we will be voting on that tonight if that $5,000 is included?
I think we would like direction from the council. We have identified if you would like it. I mean, the natural starting time would be when school starts in August. That would be when we did a big, robust push in schools, working cooperatively with the school district. But if the council, the subcommittee was very focused on communication, proper and direct and robust, and we said that we could do something up at the recreation center if we couldn't get on any of the school campuses prior to school getting out. And Westlake Village was very supportive of that as well. So that was a long-winded answer to your question, but we could start it before the end of the school year, but it would be up at the recreation center, and we probably could do a small program for $5,000 towards it, and hopefully reach 50 to 75 kids. It would be a good start.
Okay.
And yes, you would have to direct city staff and vote on that tonight.
Okay, thank you. And then my last question is for Lost Hills again. Is it harder to have different ordinances in different cities, or is it pretty clearly understood once that direction's given? So is it hard if Calabasas has a different one, Westlake has a different one, and then Agoura has a different one? Is it harder to enforce?
I wouldn't say it's harder to enforce, it's just, I think when the officer is issuing the ticket, they just need to know what section they're violating. If they're pretty much clear across the board that, okay, no e-bikes on the sidewalks, no e-bikes in the park, but just different sections, that it just take a matter of looking it up. That's really what.
Okay, thank you. That's very helpful. I appreciate that. So I hear another question from Mayor Pro Tem Klein Lopez.
Thank you. If I can ask about the fines again, you said that they're set by state statute, so it's 100, 200. You mentioned 500, which we don't have in our ordinance, and then 1,000, which we do. You cannot go more than 1,000? You can't go more than 1,000. Okay, and then I assume that if it's a juvenile, the parents are responsible for that.
Yes, there's a provision in the ordinance that says, at least with regards to paying any fines or penalties, that the parents and the child are on the hook.
Okay. So we're pretty locked in on that range. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So seeing or hearing no more questions, I will now defer to the city clerk.
Thank you. We did receive several written correspondence items that were distributed to council and would be part of the record. They were from Chateau Park HOA, Agoura Hills, Lisa Allison, Agoura Hills, Cameron Delick, Douglas Christian, Samantha, Agoura Hills, Jana Hand, Oak Park, Matthew Spalding, and Dara Cron. And we do have one public speaker here this evening, Rachel Spalding. If you'd like to step up to the podium.
Thank you and welcome. Yes, step up to the podium. You have 3 minutes to speak.
Okay, can you guys hear me?
Your time begins when you start speaking. When the yellow light appears, you'll have 30 seconds. You'll see the yellow light there. Finish before it turns red. And please adjust the microphone to begin your comments.
Okay, can you guys hear me?
Perfectly, thank you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for letting me speak. I appreciate being here. I am here to speak to you as an Agoura Hills stakeholder and resident with personal experience as a crossing guard, former crossing guard at Lindero Canyon Elementary School, Lindero Canyon Middle School, excuse me. A little nervous. What I found doing this last year was I was very dismayed. I found no parents, school or sheriff stakeholders that were really interested in helping me get to the root of why every day was so dangerous for me as a mom who's just trying to get back to work a little bit. Every day there were people plowing, kids, students plowing into the crowd at the crosswalk. Not to mention the cars going straight through, red arrow lights, everything. Nobody at the school seemed willing to help. I basically found no help. Not only that, but the kids would tell me things. They would say, everybody mods their bike, meaning modifies their bike, meaning they're all speedier than they should be. I had one kid who was the famous kid who was airlifted to the hospital, and he was there on crutches not long after that, and he said he was going to be right back on his bike. I finally got very, very angry and yelled at them because I almost got hurt, and so did somebody with a child in a stroller. And I was warned by my supervisor at the crosswalk company that I might get in trouble with the school. It was at this point that I began to realize that this job was absolutely not going to work for me in the current form. The reason I'm telling this to you is that my understanding and belief from a mother that came to the crosswalk to yell at me for telling her child not to drive into the crosswalk is that it is my understanding that there is a culture, perhaps, here in Agoura Hills. The parents have come here to give their kids the good life. Agoura Hills, the good life. They see part of the good life being that they can let their kids get the suburban existence, they want them to drive around and have this freedom. And I was told this more than once. Therefore, I have come to tell you, it is my belief through personal experience that these regulations need to have robust enforcement. These parents do not want to curtail their children's freedom. They're very different parents than perhaps I am. Eventually, thank you, that's that 30 seconds? 30 seconds. Eventually, I came to realize that this was not the right job for me. I was able to transfer to an elementary school, and things are much better for me personally. However, I was left troubled by the culture of what I saw, and I decided that I would come tonight to say I would like to help reform the culture of Agoura. We've all come here for a good life. I would like to believe that most parents here are of good judgment. I just think they need to understand that these regulations are real. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. We have no further speaker cards.
Thank you. Do any council members have any further questions? Seeing or hearing none, we will now move on to deliberations. At this point, I'm going to start with the subcommittee, and I'll start with Councilmember Anstead.
I think, first of all, I think there wasn't any questions really on the general gist of the e-bike ordinance that we want to implement it, except for the enforcement side. That seems to be where we all have questions, and I had questions earlier today, and I actually talked to the city manager concerning the enforcement part of it. And there was also, when we were in the subcommittee meeting, that's really where the discussion was as well. I mean, there was really, I think there was total agreement on like the first two offenses, and then when we got to the third offense, there was some kind of like, we weren't exactly totally on the same page. Because it's either you go really tough and you make it a misdemeanor with teeth, you say that you can be fined $1,000, which is a pretty hefty fine, plus, or there could be also jail time, and it's a misdemeanor, and the fact that that goes on a juvenile's record. And I know from being around the juvenile justice system that that's something it's something that you don't want to have on your record as a juvenile. And you don't want a juvenile to be labeled a troublemaker right as they're starting to get into their adult life. And so I know it's a very big decision, and I think we're having the proper discussion right now. I like hearing what the discussion is, and I think I'd like to hear from my other city council members about continuing kind of what they feel about whether we should have a third or a fourth infraction and exactly what that should be. I think, at least on my own, I can only talk for myself, is I feel very comfortable with the first two infractions, and I think it's just the third, or do we have a fourth, on where we go with this. But the way the statute's written, or the ordinance is written, and the enforcement, all that's exactly what we discussed during the subcommittee meeting, and I'm completely comfortable with it. And ready to move forward. It's really just that last kind of provision on putting the teeth in the ordinance where we want to have the discussion. So that's kind of where I am right now tonight, and I'll pass it to my fellow council member from the subcommittee.
Thank you, Councilmember Anstead. I'm really glad that I was on this subcommittee because I've learned so much about e-bikes that I didn't know before. The American Academy of Pediatrics advises that children under 16 should not operate or ride e-bikes or e-scooters, as these devices can reach high speeds, leading to increased serious risk of high-impact injuries. And what they're saying is that e-bikes weigh almost twice as much as a regular bike. And I don't think parents realize this. I really don't believe any parent would want their child to have head trauma, to have internal bleeding injuries, or, heaven forbid, to be killed because they're riding a toy. That's what the parents see it as. It is not a toy. It is an electric motorized vehicle. And coming down the road, I know there's more legislation. There are 3 bills in the legislation right now that are trying to tighten up who should be riding them, that there should be an age limit, that they should, be having to take a test. I mean, kids, we've all seen kids just driving right through a red light, driving through a stop sign. They're only 12, 13 years old. They don't even know the rules of the road. So how can a parent put their child on this vehicle and shove them out the door and say, go and have fun, without even teaching them the rules of the road? And that's why it's so important. When we had the education specialist came and talked to us, her brother suffered traumatic head injuries. And that's why she's doing this, because she says, she came with her mother, and we said, we don't want any other family to go through what we have gone through. We have to educate, and that's why that, and I would say don't wait until the beginning of the school year. We've got the summer coming up. These kids are going to be roaming the city streets all summer. We need to do it now. We need to save lives, and we need to educate the parents, because they don't understand what is going on. And you can hear I'm very passionate about this now, but having seen, I've gone online, every day now you see on the news another kid is in emergency care because they've got a brain injury. Just today there was a 12-year-old that ran into a wall. She went straight over the wall down a sort of a hillside, and she wasn't wearing their proper helmet. And I've seen these kids riding around here. They've got those little caps on their head with a chin strap. That's not a helmet. That's not going to protect them. And then what happens to the drivers? I have a friend who hit a kid because he came zooming up the road. He didn't stop at the stop sign, and she hit him. And now she's liable. That's a frightening thing, and I don't want us to have to deal with that in this city. So you know what? Yes, we have to put teeth into it because parents aren't paying attention. And, $100 fine, nothing. As the sheriff's deputy will testify, when they confiscate a kid, what does the parent do? They go out and buy a new bike. They don't care. So unless it has teeth, parents, and thank you for speaking up, I really appreciated hearing from you, Rachel. Parents are not listening. And it's not just the kids we've got to get to the parents. So my little spiel, I'll let somebody else go. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. I'll now move it on to our left. Councilmember Anderson.
Oh my gosh. Penny, yes to everything that you said. I feel the same amount of passion. So thank you again to the staff. Thank you to the subcommittee. Rachel, thank you for coming. It is such a compelling story that you left a job because of this. That says a lot. And I want to thank in absentia all of the folks who wrote in and submitted public comment. I am so glad we are doing this. I am terrified by this, mostly as a mom. I watch these kids and I'm like, oh, this is scary. And I just want to add on to this. So December of 2025, cover of the New York Times Magazine is e-bikes. Are e-bikes out of control? To which, of course, the answer is yes. And I'm just going to add to Penny's with a couple of statistics. So one of the most alarming differences was the fatality rate, the alarming differences between regular bikes and e-bikes. On pedal bike, the chance of dying from an injury is about 0.3%, Alfred says. On an e-bike, data indicated it was 11%, of dying. Another statistic, a study by the University of California, San Francisco, found that from 2017 to 2022, Lord knows what it would be now, so just 2017 to 2022, head injuries from e-bike accidents increased 49-fold. This is real. I was talking to Emmy my daughter earlier today, and I told her what we were doing, and she's like, yeah, Mama, she's up at Davis, she's like, yeah, Mama, an e-bike killed somebody. A guy on an e-bike killed somebody on a regular bike. And this story, the cover story, the framing of the story is this harrowing. She was 16, she was on an e-bike, she crashed, wasn't wearing a proper helmet, and literally crushed her skull. Now there's a happy ending, which is how she gets to be on the New York Times, but it's devastating. I love the education. I honestly think this enforcement, this ordinance is really, really important. We have to do this, and 10 times over, we have to do the education, because that's where it's going to get to folks. I absolutely would support, and my understanding, we're having our goals workshop, and my understanding is our funding is such that we may be able to, or it looks like we can, and if we can, 100% support moving forward with the education right now. And I couldn't agree more that we need to have teeth to this, and that there needs to be a misdemeanor. I love that, I'm going to be honest with you, I love that a misdemeanor goes on somebody's records, because to your point, these parents need to know this, and the parents that can go out and afford to buy a kid another bike are the same parents that are hiring people, and listen, anyway, they're the same parents that are hiring people to make sure their kids get into good schools, right? These are the same parents that care a whole lot about their kids' records. So the fact that a misdemeanor goes on their record doesn't bother me a bit, actually. The fact that a misdemeanor potentially results in them getting arrested doesn't bother me a bit either, because those same parents, and it's funny, I know some of them. In fact, I'll leave her nameless, but she was over at my house for dinner over the summer, and her kid has an e-bike and had an ankle injury because, to your point, Penny, she's like, yeah, he doesn't know the rules of the road, and he didn't know to look left, and he ran into a car. This parent, again, since I'm leaving her nameless, this parent 100%, if she knew that her kid would have a misdemeanor, get arrested, and have this on her record, there would be a conversation in that household. So here's where I differ with the recommendation, is the way this ordinance is written. If a child is caught with an infraction riding a bike in a park once, that's the first infraction. A child is caught riding a bike in the park the second time that same year, it's an infraction. A child is caught riding a bike in a park a third time, they could go to county jail. That's what this ordinance allows. This ordinance, and it isn't or, and I've heard the conversations like, but nobody would do it. Here's the way to make sure that nobody does it. Take it off the table. That's what's in our control as a city council. If we leave jail as an option in this code, we are then allowing the discretion of police officers who have best intentions. They might think it's the right thing, of prosecutors and of judges. And it could be the case that a kid could go to jail. That's what our code would allow a kid to go to jail just for riding his bike in the park 3 times in a row within a year. So I intend to introduce an amendment that would not change the penalties for other, what's the word? That wouldn't change the penalties for other, oh my gosh, what's the M word? I can't believe, misdemeanor, thank you. So our code, the way that this proposed ordinance is written is at the end, in enforcement, it says, an operator's first violation of this chapter and second violation of this chapter within 1 year shall each be an infraction punishable as set forth in section 1200B of chapter 2 of article 1 of this code. An operator's third or subsequent violation of this chapter within 1 year of the last violation shall be a misdemeanor punishable as set forth in section 1200A of chapter 3 of article 1 of this code, which allows either a $1,000 fine or 6 months in county jail to the discretion of people that are not us. So my proposed amendment is to, at the end of that sentence, say, with the exception that if the offender is a juvenile, in lieu of imprisonment in county jail, that they be referred to a community diversion program, like the ones that Sergeant, oh my gosh, I'm so bad with names, Sergeant Aronson referred to earlier. Mayor, as I understand it, we're just having discussion now, and I've stated my intention to make an amendment after the motion has been made.
Thank you. So I'm going to continue with deliberations to allow Mayor Pro Tem Klein Lopez, then I think we can continue.
The discussion.
Yeah.
I guess I have to, before I share my thoughts, I have to go back and clarify a question that I had based on Councilmember Anderson's point. When you say the discretion of people that are not us, that was my question, is whose discretion is it? And the answer was our prosecutor. And are we directing the prosecutor? Can you clarify that for me?
No, so obviously the prosecutor the city prosecutor is hired by the city, and they consult with the city manager and staff but technically, it's the city prosecutor's discretion. I have never seen a city prosecutor who went rogue, but it's usually in consultation with the city manager.
So it is, to a certain extent, the discretion of people who are us.
Yeah, I mean, the city prosecutor is technically part of the city. You're saying aren't us or
Well,
are?
I'm
Yeah.
I'm referring to a comment that Councilmember Anderson made, that the discretion of $1,000 versus, really going harder than that in terms of county jail is at the discretion of people who are not us. That was her comment, and I'm trying to clarify who that is. And my question earlier was about that, and the answer was the city prosecutor. And so the city prosecutor is hired by the city of Agoura Hills, so it kind of is us. Okay.
That was just to clarify, it's not something that goes to the city council and they decide.
Or
Yeah.
or a court
Or
was
court.
my question.
A court, correct.
Or a court.
Yes.
Okay. This is a lot to take in. I mean, I think, to Councilmember Ansted's point, we're all on the same page that this is a big problem, that we know what unsafe behavior is. We've all seen it. It's very dangerous. It's important we get an ordinance in place. There's obviously a lot that's outside of our limited role as a city. It sounds to me, certainly, that there's a lot to do at the state level in terms of perhaps imposing age limits and possibly some kind of licensing or testing. And certainly these fines and enforcement levels have practically no teeth. $1,000, to your point, Councilmember Sylvester, someone just goes out and buys a new bike. The money itself does not seem to be a distraction for certain families. For some it is. So, sounding to me that there's a lot to do at a level that is outside our jurisdiction. What is our role? Our role is limited. We can enforce this on our city owned property, in our parks, on our sidewalks, and I think it's very clear that we want to do that. So I'm all for moving forward with starting this conversation and enforcing most of this, and then we'll get to the different levels in a moment. And I'm certainly in favor of any money we can set aside that fits within our budget for education. I do think it's important that we coordinate with our local cities so that we are all on the same page. I think that's important. And right now, what I'm hearing is the difference this ordinance has between the only other city that has an ordinance is that we specifically call out infraction, which sounds like it was the intent of Westlake Village. They have 3 levels. They have 4 levels. We have 3. They have 1, 2, 5, 1,000. To Councilmember Anderson's point of, kind of a 1, 2, 3 kid riding in a park 3 times, I'm not opposed to considering. I would like to know what my other council members think of adding the $500 level in for a 3rd infraction. So 100, 200, 500, and then the 1,000 goes to the misdemeanor, which is consistent with the other ordinance that is in place and possibly what Calabasas is coming through with. Gives a kid one more chance, gives a parent one more notice, gives us a chance to educate one more time, and that time may make a difference if we're able to say, look, the 4th time is going to have some serious consequences. So I would like to know what my other council members think about that. The other thing is, if we're able to do it, I 100% agree that we should be moving kids towards diversion programs as opposed to jail. That's, life-changing, and, does the punishment fit the crime? Sometimes if there's some real dangers, and certainly, as we've seen, injuries and even death. So it is a serious issue, but you know, it could go sideways if this is a park that isn't kind of rising to the extent of jail time. So if that's, you know, legally possible, I would ask our city attorney and certainly ask my fellow council members. I would love to clarify that we would prefer a diversion program over the other option. And so with that, I'll leave my comments, and I'm interested to hear what you have to say, Mr. Mayor, and what others have to say about the conversation.
Very well said by all the council members. Just to start with the low-hanging fruit, the $5,000 I think is a no-brainer, and I agree with what Councilmember Sylvester said about summer's coming, and we should start this now. We should start it aggressively. Regarding e-bikes, it has become a tremendous issue throughout the city of Agoura, the county of Los Angeles, the state of California. We are not unique in this problem. But what we do have is a responsibility to protect our residents and to make sure that people feel safe being in public spaces, and that is incumbent upon us. And right now, some people don't feel safe in public spaces, and there was a lot of public comments writing in about streets, and we don't have authority on streets or businesses. So for the public that's hearing, what we do have authority is what was laid out tonight, and that's parks, that's sidewalks, that's trails, and that's drainage ditches. So that's what we're looking at tonight. A lot of very valid points were made, and Councilmember Anderson, I really appreciate where you're coming from. I was actually going to also recommend possibly looking, and I do want to hear what other council members have to say about adding in a third, because if prefrontal cortexes are not done developing, and teens make really bad decisions, but a fourth time is not an acceptable bad decision, and I do think that there should be consequences there, and I am comfortable with the consequences that are laid out for a fourth decision. And I do think we're taking the first step to provide teeth with this, $100, $200, $500. That signals, that shows that we are taking this serious and we will be enforcing this. And this is something that we won't allow, and we will be taking this very serious because it is a public safety risk. And so that's where I'm at right now. I want to, I guess, keep the conversation open to turn it over to the subcommittee, see where they stand on the possibly looking at 4, because I've seen the way that's going. So is that, am I able to turn it over back?
Mayor, can I make one clarification?
Please.
As far as diversion? So
Please.
when it comes to infractions, typically we don't do diversion. We just send it through and it's a fine. Our juvenile team at our station typically handles all misdemeanors and felonies, etc. The misdemeanors are typically set to diversion on the station level. They don't go up to the court yet. They kind of hold it in the balance and say you need to complete diversion first. If they've done it multiple times, then yes, we're going to be sending it through. But the station level, our juvenile deputies and juvenile detectives are typically holding that without sending it to the court and having them complete diversion. Does that clarify anything for you guys?
Councilmember Anderson, please.
Yeah, okay, so that's awesome. And that's what I understand about the way that our county diversion program works. We don't need to have it in our code in order for you to divert a youth. That all across the county of LA, our phenomenal sheriff's departments are diverting youth. So that's happening already, which is fantastic. That's great. I am so glad to know that that's happening. My concern is, and the reason I want to take it off is, take jail off the table, is that it can then get to a place, what our code would allow is that it could get to a place where 6 months in county jail is an option for a kid who's caught 3 or potentially 4 times riding their bike in a park. And I just, having honestly been in, we call them camps here in the county of LA, having been in these camps, I don't believe, one of my fellow council members said, does the punishment fit the crime? I don't believe that riding your bike 4 times in a park deserves you to land in county jail. And I hear our city attorney saying that, you know, nobody's ever gone rogue and she's never seen it happen that somebody has gone to jail for a misdemeanor. So if that's the case, why even have it as an option? For me, in some ways, it's a matter of principle that I, as a city council member, don't want to be sitting up in this dais and say, I'm willing to send a kid to jail for riding their bike in a park 4 times or 3 times, which is what we would say if we passed this code. We are saying it's okay. We're saying it's unlikely. We can tell ourselves a story. It's never happened before. We can't see it happening. We can't, I use a phrase at work all the time. I can't imagine a world where it happens, except I can. Like, by keeping it in this ordinance without an amendment that takes that off the table, what we are saying as a city council is we're okay sending a kid to jail, riding a bike in a park after 3 times. And I'm not okay with that. I would like to have that taken off the table. I think we do need strong teeth. I think this whole misdemeanor thing on your record, I'm repeating what I've said before, is all the same. But City Attorney, I have a question for you, because I'm confused about enforcement a little bit. So, because I'm hearing our sheriff say that, you know, they're the ones that are going to arrest, but then I'm hearing it's a twofold question. Where does the city prosecutor come in? And then I'm also a little unclear. I think I heard you say that the city prosecutor is independent. So can we tell the city prosecutor, we do not want you, can we enforce that? Can we control the city prosecutor and say you're not allowed to ask for jail?
They can set, I mean, you could suggest that and say that's what you want, but it's the city prosecutor's decision. I would like to clarify, so I agree with the sergeant in terms of what he talks about in diversion, but I believe, and please correct me if I'm wrong, I don't want to speak out of turn. He's speaking in the context of violations of state law, penal code, vehicle code, right? This is not, I mean, if you have experience with sending violations of municipal code to the court, please let me know, but I've not heard of that. So when it's a violation of muni code, I understand that it's a little different, and I think that's why he hesitated when you first asked him that question, is do you do diversion from municipal code? And you said, I would have to look into that. So I do think, to the extent that there's some discomfort about, you know, adding this language, that we would have to do a little bit of research from the sheriff's department and staffs and, you know, collectively to make sure what does this really mean. So that, I mean, that's up to the council, but it seems that it's not exactly clear. My understanding is that the violations of muni code it's not going to a court.
So when Ms. Yambao said it's a notice to appear, where are they appearing? Remember, it was a fine or a notice to appear. The answer was it's a notice to appear.
With apologies to the staff, we have not discussed that.
So I think that's important for us to understand, because I'm very confused as to what happens after the 3rd or 4th infraction, what we can control, what we can't control. What happens after that?
So I can tell you what I've seen in other cities, right? You have a violation of the muni code, they have like a ticket book, it says violation of this provision of the municipal code, you know, this is the first infraction. They check, you know, first infraction, second infraction. So it's like, you'll see the dollar amounts and you'll see the infraction. So then when it goes to misdemeanor, usually any violation of the municipal code, that's kicked to the city prosecutor, and the city prosecutor decides to file an action prosecuting them criminally as a misdemeanor. We did that during the pandemic, for example. So notice
that went to court.
Yes, because we filed an action in court.
Okay.
It wasn't like it automatically went to the court. Yeah, the city filed.
So to Councilmember Anderson's question of putting the diversion program in there in lieu of 6 months in county jail, is that an option?
Yes, I do believe that is an option. I think what's a little bit not clear is, does that mean you're taking the $1,000 fine away, but it doesn't say, it's not clear in the language. The problem with changing kind of something important like this on the fly is I don't like unintended.
I'm not asking to change it on the fly.
Yeah.
I'm asking if we need to go back and come back another time, if if the council decides that that is the route they want to go. I understand you can't, we'd have to come back, but I don't want to not weigh in on this if what we're asking is not legally feasible.
No, I believe it is legally feasible.
Okay, thank you.
With that, I would like to hear from this side of the dais.
I really like your idea because I believe in education, but I would like to add to it. I would like to say not only the child, but the parent has to do a diversion program. Because if parents have to show up and take a class, that's going to have a lot more teeth. So I would like to say that, take the other, the heavy duty one off, but both parent and child have to attend.
I do think, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Are you sure?
Please.
Okay. So the language that I have seen in municipal codes with regards to e-bikes and diversion programs is not mandatory on the third or fourth violation. We're taking it off. You have to go to juvenile diversion. It's worded as an option to go to juvenile diversion, and in terms of the language of bringing in both the parent and child, the language that I have seen is, I'm sorry, let me just pull that up. Okay. In lieu of a fine or administrative citation as authorized by this chapter, and in lieu of filing charges in any court having jurisdiction over violation, the police chief or designee, and obviously we don't have a police chief, so that would be someone else, may allow a juvenile violator and parents of the juvenile violator to complete a police department diversion safety program, if available, at their expense, as assigned by the police department designee. So that is language that says, hey, it's both the juvenile violator and their parents together, and it's an option, like they may allow it, it's not an automatic thing. And I don't know if the sheriff's department wants a little bit more leeway, or if you guys want to go straight, it's mandatory, it needs to be juvenile diversion. I just offer that up as language I've seen.
Can I let Councilmember Sylvester
Yes.
finish your thought?
And also, it should be an in-person, not an online. It has to be an in-person diversion program. Because when we spoke to the educator who came to talk to us, she said the online programs are rubbish. She said you have to have them sitting there so you can see them face to face, so you know they're absorbing the information. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem, I saw it.
Just a quick question about diversion, just not familiar. Does it go on a juvenile's record? Does it get expunged? Like what is the long-term consequences of diversion, just out of curiosity?
I don't think we have a clear answer unless Sergeant Aarons knows better.
I just clarified with our juvenile team. I just sent them a text message and asked them if they actually filed municipal code violations. And I was told no, they.
So does that mean the city would then refer them, because we know who to refer them to? So we could refer them to, I don't care if it goes on, I don't think it needs to go on a child's record, I just want them to learn. And I want the
Well, I know you
parents
don't
to
care.
learn.
I'm asking if it does, because if
Yeah.
something goes on a record,
Sorry,
there's a
I
consequence.
meant, I don't need it to go on anybody's record.
Well,
just-
I know, but does it? That's my
Yeah,
question.
but if it's referred by the city, then would we just be educating?
I just don't know enough about diversion.
Yeah, I don't think city staff knows the details, and I want to answer all of your questions, and they're very good questions. But I don't know whether it's online or in person. I don't know if it's going to stay
Okay.
with the juvenile's
I
record.
mean, these
So
are questions that we.
Yeah, no, so if that's the direction of the council, I would suggest that we would probably need to come back with all of that
Yeah.
information, because that's going to take a little time to gather.
I do want to hear from Councilmember Anstead.
I appreciate it. No, the main thing the one thing I want to say when we bring back this proposal is I actually feel, and we probably need to make a judgment on this tonight, is that I would want it totally, I mean, except for maybe the diversion part or the fine thing, but the 4, I would like to be in line with Westlake. And I'd also like a lot of the rest of the ordinance to be in line with Westlake. And the reason is, I do think we need to have a common thing in the Conejo, or try as much as possible in the Conejo Valley to have a common thing, because, I mean, these kids don't make a differentiation whether they're in Westlake or whether they're in Agoura Hills. And so I think I'd like that to be as much as we can in common with Westlake. And so I would agree with having the 4 penalties. And my belief is that if you do diversion, it doesn't go on your record. But that's just my belief, and I can't say it for a fact. I think that's my feeling. We definitely want education, and I would also agree with the fact that we should have the parents at the diversion program as well. So I would want that in there as well. And I think that's my thoughts kind of on it. I think we're pretty close to agreement on it, but we have to probably have it come back, I think.
But Councilmember Anderson, I agree with most of what you said, but my one question, clarification is in line with Westlake. I believe we were looking at infractions where theirs were administrative.
If I heard correctly, you're referring to the code sections of the
code sections.
Yeah,
but I also I do believe that we should. My belief is that we should have the four times, the first 3 admin, and then the 4th one being the misdemeanor.
Yeah, and so just for clarity, the rest of the code section that's presented to you tonight is very similar. We have slight differences in the cities, right? Each city's a little bit different, but for the majority of it, it's almost the same. It's very simple. Just for clarification on that.
Okay, great. That's great.
So I do think there's a few outstanding. I'm hearing that we're rowing in the same direction on a few things, but I'm hearing 3 and 4. So what, with diversion at the end of the line, do we want 3 or 4? And Councilmember Anderson, you indicated that you would have been comfortable with 3 with diversion at the end, but then I heard 4 here. So I do want to get some direction maybe on that so we can narrow it down as much as possible.
I think I was just trying to do that because I wanted to be more in line with Westlake. But I'm willing to listen to my other city council members if they feel that we should just feel passionately that we want to have teeth at 3. If that's the only difference between Westlake, then I'd be still willing to go forward.
And I do see city attorneys. Do you have anything to add? So, yeah.
I was just going to add, I'm where Councilmember Anstead is. I am comfortable going forward with 3, but I've heard the desire for consistency with Westlake, and that makes a whole lot of sense to me, and I would be comfortable giving the direction to staff to go to 4. 4 levels with diversion at the end and jail off the table.
I would, and I want to hear from the rest of the council, but I do think we should keep it at 3 because I think 4 is going so far away from where we started, and we are lessening some of it. So my preference is 3, but should I take a vote on that, or?
Shall I weigh in?
Yes,
okay.
please.
I think 3 times in 1 year is plenty of warning. I mean, because the kids that are going to pay attention will pay attention right at the beginning. The kids that aren't going to pay attention, you give them 4, 5, 6, they'll wait till the end. So, we know our residents are upset. We know they feel threatened. And I think we need to support our residents too. Yes, they are children, but children learn. And we always say to ourselves, you have to set boundaries with your kids. And if you set the boundary out here, they're going to wait till they get out there. If you set the boundary here, they'll stop when they get here. So I think we should stay with where we're at. Thank you.
And I understand the consistency with the other cities, but I do want us to have teeth on this.
And I'm fine with that too then. I'm comfortable with the direction being 3.
And so, please.
Well, so when you say 3, actually it's having 2 infractions and the 3rd one
I
being
apologize.
a misdemeanor,
Thank
right?
you.
Okay.
That is
I just wanted clarification.
Thank you for the
Yeah,
clarification.
sure.
I apologize. We've gotten kind of far off this. So just to reiterate, we're looking at the guidance to staff to bring this back with the first infraction at $100 second infraction at $200, third infraction at $1,000, thank you.
Third
Third violation, $1,000, or diversion for both parent and adult. Is that correct?
Mayor, one comment
Please.
actually, with that, since we're going with the three, I would even ask the city council, do we want to change are we allowed by law to change the second one to $500?
No.
No, we're not.
For
That's a good
infractions, the first
question.
infraction has to be 100, the second infraction has to be 200, and the third one has to be 500.
Okay.
Yes, and does it have to be pay or, cannot we just say there is a $500 fine and mandatory? Because otherwise we're still letting them off the hook, and we're not educating.
So so typically juvenile diversion, it's offered in connection with a misdemeanor, or a higher offense, not in connection with an infraction. So I do think it's probably 100, 200. Third violation is a misdemeanor, which is why then it gives you the option of $1,000 or going to county jail, but you guys are saying you don't want them to go to county jail. I would also add in your deliberations, I believe that Councilmember Anderson's suggestion is that on the third violation, if it's a juvenile in lieu of imprisonment, that it would be a diversion program, not that that's one of the options. So that would be required, as opposed to the police officer or the city prosecutor can elect to decide to give them diversion.
Yeah, I would like it to be required, because otherwise we're not educating. And the child isn't paying the fine, so they're not learning anything from the fines.
So are you saying that it was what you're recommending, to take away the $1,000 fine and just have the third, with the misdemeanor, be just diversion, mandatory diversion?
I would be
Is that what
happy,
you're
because we're not really about the money, we're about educating these children and their parents. So if you want to have the fine, great, but I would just like to see mandatory, training programs. And so they can't get out of it. So it's not either pay the fine or do the program.
I think it hurts the parent more if you keep the fine in there and make them go.
Okay,
and make
well,
them go to
it's
diversion.
just as long as that they have to do it, it's not an option, the program, in person.
Here's my sense is that we're now getting to a level of complexity where staff and the city attorney probably need to be able, they're hearing what we are hoping for, and what I'm hearing from our city attorney is that there are guardrails on what we can do with our municipal code. I've heard that we are allowed to take jail off the table and do diversion, and so I think the direction that I'm hearing is, please investigate these options. We want to have parents to be a part of this in some way, and then come back with options for us.
So to Councilmember Anderson's point of where we left it off, is there enough direction from the council, or do we need to iron out a few more things?
Yeah, I think I have good direction. I just want to clarify, I don't know that we're eligible for diversion program, and I've had conversations with Councilmember Anderson. If we're not, I just want to make sure that it's okay with the council that we bring back options for some type of, whether it's educational or another diversion program. I can't promise you what that is yet, because we haven't done the research on it, but I would hate to find out that we're not eligible and then have to come back and then come back an additional time to that. So I just want to make sure that if we find that information out, we will bring back other options as well, just to be clear, if that's okay with the council.
That's absolutely, for my part, that is absolutely okay with me. Where I'm at is, I want to take jail off the table. I don't want to vote for an ordinance that has a kid going to jail, riding their bike in the park 3 times. And with all of my fellow city council members who believe that education is really, really important. And how that happens, I'm then agnostic on.
So the one comment I want to make on that, that comes to my mind, the only thing that I don't know if we're taking it off the table or not, and I have to ask the city attorney what would happen in this situation. If an e-biker was on the sidewalk and it was their third violation, and they hit somebody walking to the grocery store, and the person hit their head on the sidewalk and they died, then
Yeah.
what does the process, does the city-
They're in a whole ball of wax and different trouble that the sheriff, well, there are lots of codes that address that one. They're beyond, if they do it, and that's why it's important for me to take it off the table for this, because if they do anything like that, like I said, there are all kinds of codes that are going to take, that will take them out. It's that our ordinance would allow them, would open up the possibility, and again, it's very unlikely, but we would be saying we are okay. All a kid does is ride a bike on a sidewalk 3 times in a year. They could spend 6 months in county jail.
So I'm so sorry, Councilmember Anstad. I actually didn't hear your question. So could you clarify what your question was? So if someone hit their head on the sidewalk, then...
No, if an e-bike hit somebody walking to the grocery store and the person fell and they died,
Yes.
what would be the consequence? I guess Councilmember
So
Anderson saying they would be
under our
prosecuted.
code, and it's a third violation, and if we adopt the version that Councilmember Anderson suggests, then under our code, it's just diversion. The third strike would be diversion. But as she had mentioned, there's other vehicle code, penal code provisions, other provisions at play where the DA's office and the sheriff's department can get involved on, but it wouldn't be a municipal code violation, and it wouldn't be under our purview. So it does take away that additional option in terms of your, range of options.
And if it happened on the first violation, it would be the same thing. If they kill somebody, even if it's just the first violation.
It's just an infraction under our code, correct?
But they would be facing consequences.
Under state law, correct.
Yes, so that no matter which version.
So hearing any more deliberation? It's been a lively conversation. So with that, please.
I just would want to end by saying to our speaker, Rachel, we're so close. So I don't want the public to think that we're not moving forward with this. I hope you feel that it's been a productive conversation. Everyone who wrote to us feels that it's been a productive conversation that has been thoughtful to our youth as well as our residents that are affected by this. We're very close.
Well said. Appreciate that. So with that, I'm going to call for a motion to continue this item based upon the feedback given to the council to staff.
Councilmember Anderson so moves.
Councilmember Sylvester seconds.
I'll now defer to the city clerk for roll call.
I just have one question. Are we continuing to a date certain, or are we just continuing? Okay, thank you.
Just continuing.
Councilmember Anderson?
Aye.
Councilmember Anstad?
Aye.
Councilmember Sylvester?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Klein Lopez?
Aye.
Mayor Wolf?
Aye.
Mayor Wolf, you have approval 5-0.
Moving on to council staff comments. Are there any comments from staff? Being or hearing none. Are there any comments from the city council?
I would
Councilmember Sylvester,
I would just
please.
like to say that last night I went to a homeowners meeting in Liberty Canyon with the Park Service, National Park Service, and they were talking about the sightings of wildlife in the area and concerns with the mountain lions. And what the rangers pointed out is that all this wildlife has always been here for hundreds of years, and the only reason that people are talking about it now is because everybody has a Ring camera, so they're capturing the wildlife. But there is no more than there was before, and when the wildlife bridge comes in, there will probably be less, because we'll be opening up the range. They're like the mountain lions, they said, need like 50 square miles each. And they don't allow other mountain lions to come into their territory, because they kill them. So only one survives. So there will not be more wildlife, dangerous wildlife coming in. It's the same as it always was, and just we have to be aware that we're living with nature and take the necessary precautions. But it was a very good evening.
Very well said. Thank you for attending. Councilmember Anderson?
Two things. One, you guys may remember that in our budget workshop, we are sponsoring the Topanga Fiddle Fest again, and it is happening May 17th, though don't quote me on that, I'm not looking at my calendar, but tickets just went on sale last week. It's going to be back at King Gillette Ranch one more time. They were hoping to have it at Paramount Ranch, but it's not quite ready. So one more year, very, very close to us. It's a lot of fun. Highly encourage folks to go. And then two, we have our wildfire prevention plan draft out. It came out on Monday, very exciting. Councilmember Sylvester and I serve on the ad hoc committee, so we had time to sit down with Jensen and Hughes, who were phenomenal in putting this thing together. There are bunches of recommendations. There is an event at City Hall, or I'm sorry, not City Hall, at the Event Center on St. Patrick's Day, May 17th, March 17th, 5 to 7, wear green. Jensen and Hughes will be there, city staff will be there. And we really need comments, we need thoughts about this, both do we have the recommendation, like what do you think of the recommendations, and then super important are the prioritization of those recommendations, because we won't be able to do all of it at once, so we need to know what's important to our community for us to take on first. And the whole point of this thing is that the state has funding for wildfire prevention, and this plan will set us up for that funding. You know, there are no guarantees, knock on something, and we need to know from our city residents what it is that you want us to be prioritizing, seeking that funding and preventing wildfires in the city of Agoura Hills.
Seeing no other comments, I'll take a second to thank Amy and her team for putting together a very successful Ladyface Film Festival. It was, as it was in my speech, it highlighted the best of the Conejo Valley and Agoura Hills, what they have to offer. So that was another very successful event, showcased the city. And then we had our 3rd annual Women's Day luncheon, International Women's Day. That was definitely the best one yet. It was, I think, what was the count of people there? We had over 200 people in our event center. It was a beautiful day, great event, so well done. So I know you guys have been firing on all cylinders. Thank you for that. It was a really great event that the city was a sponsor on. I also want to thank council for a very robust conversation. It's really great that we can articulate, and we're putting public policy into place, and it's really important. And so I appreciate that we're giving it the consideration, and I thank the staff for their patience, for listening to it all, and the work that goes into that. So I have an before adjournment. Actually, no, here we go. I have an announcement. There's a special goal-setting workshop that is scheduled for 4 p.m. with a regular city council meeting scheduled for 6 p.m. on March 25th, 2026 in the council chambers of the Civic Center located at 3001 Ladyface Court at Agoura Hills, California. The meeting is now adjourned.